Well, hello, evolutionaries, and welcome back to Evolution Greenworks, where we talk about everything to do with the environment. And actually, we've got one of our sponsors on today, which is fantastic. I've been waiting for a while to actually interview him. He's got so many years' experience in our industry, and he's sharing that now. So he is the founder and president of AETI, and I'm so excited to have you, Chris Williamson, here. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing. I'm doing amazing. We got the sun shining outside, so my solar panels are producing nicely. How is everything going out there? Are you in Calgary right now?
Yes,
Whereabouts are you?
Calgary, and the smoke has moved from the forest fires out west, so we're pretty excited about that. Our solar panels can go back to producing electricity again quite effectively.
And that's actually huge. This season, we've had a lot of cabins that haven't had enough energy, and they've been like first time ever turning on a generator or something, and asking a lot of questions because of it, or adding to their solar. But yes, it's actually a little bit worse than clouds at times.
It totally is. It's actually crazy how bad it is. So we've got some installs that we've done like over a decade ago that can still be monitored for production, and we just see them crash around the smoke time in the area effectively. So it's pretty sad. The impacts of the climate changes that we're experiencing are far-reaching. And I used to really
Absolutely.
believe that in the event of things all going really badly, my plan was I know how to make electricity with solar. So I was going to team up with maybe some people that could hunt, or another guy who's a survivalist, and I'll make electricity, and they'll feed me well. Was my plan. But now I'm afraid that if it's going to involve fire, I might not be able to do that with solar.
Yeah, well, you can gain energy multiple different ways, and you're pretty resourceful. It's not just solar.
No, that's so
And
true.
you can absorb energy in many different ways. I've even done the coil.
Yeah.
I've created my own panels by rubbing carbon
Mhm.
into film and buffing it out. You actually get a charge out of that. I've created my own batteries, the aluminum salt batteries.
Mhm. That's
We
true.
did. Yeah, we did. I didn't do this on Evolution Greenworks, but if you go to Evolve Green's YouTube, I did this with my kids. Actually,
That's cool.
it held voltage forever,
Awesome.
forever. It was just amazing.
Well, lots of
But
people
yeah,
think that I'm all about the solar, but I love hydro turbines. I love wind turbines. I love
yes.
all forms of generation. I actually got into renewables via hydro turbines and wind turbines first, and
See,
then
actually, me too. Oh God, that's funny because actually, I'm considered a wind expert as well because I started in LED lighting and wind.
yeah,
I didn't start with solar. It was $8 a watt at the time when way back. Okay, I've been in the industry a long time, and so have you. And I mean, I remember those 195-watt panels, which were massive at the time, right? To us, right?
yeah.
And they were like $1,000 to buy.
I
Like,
agree.
and you'd have to ship them from like Timbuktu to get them here because nobody had that kind of a panel here.
It's totally true. We were talking the other day about what was the first module you installed, and mine was a 72 cell 165 watt that I remember, and that was like
Really?
way back in the day. Yeah, that's
They
like
were all different wattages too, and all different voltages. Yeah, you had to really watch. I know the first microinverter we did was Enphase Energy,
yeah.
and it was in 2010. We did a commercial project in the U.S. Actually, can't say with who, but we are actually under a non-disclosure for that. But it was a massive company that we did it for, and they ended up investing in Enphase later,
Yeah, Enphase
which
was
was
really awesome.
pretty cool. Yeah. So we were a
They're so
part of
awesome.
all that. So we've worked on some pretty amazing things. And of course, back in the day when Ontario went crazy, I was a finder. So in other words, you couldn't find, the cable you needed, the specialized cable for like the end phase or the something like that, right?
That's right.
Wasn't as readily available. People don't realize how much this industry has really truly grown, eh?
It's true. I was one of the
Uh,
first back in the Ontario days taking advantage of the high value that they were putting on energy that was fed back in. And
yeah.
I look back at it, and those were interesting moments in renewable energy. That really changed the landscape of Canada, and it set the precedent for what would become all the other uh, rules that we would face provincially from coast to coast.
Yes.
So I guess in ways maybe we helped break them at the time or build them or whatever it was, but it really was a wild west industry back then. Um,
It really was. And I'm not going to say that it's not still the same a little bit today. There's pockets where it's still very wild. Um, but I think it's taming into a mature industry now here, where I feel that it is. Um, and now we've got the checks and balances, and it's kind of nice because there's a lot more available now too. So there's money being put into research and development, and that's why we have carbon batteries where they're at. That's why we have lithium technology changing the way we do, and why we have so many more manufacturers of certified product. Do you remember how hard it was to get certified
yeah,
product for Canada?
yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Because also, I mean, Canada was one of the late adopters, I guess, of renewable. I mean, so this stuff was going on
absolutely.
all over the place, and we just
Yeah.
didn't have certified things under our certifications that were accepted. So I do remember trying to get things certified, and these one-offs where
Oh,
you
yeah.
call in the CSA rep and he'd be throwing stickers on your stuff, as it was
Oh,
going.
yeah. I was on a first name basis with ETL
Yeah, there you
for
go.
site inspections. I remember once they had one of our 20 kilowatt turbines sitting in their thing over in BC,
Hmm.
and they wanted us to change two things
Hmm.
and to qualify it. Like it was minor stuff. It was a breaker, and I think one of the wires just
Yeah.
didn't have the writing it needed, so just this little piece had to be changed. It was nothing big, but it was a massive it was 20 kilowatt, and that's massive, okay? And they had a little tiny lab out there. So they called me and said, what is it going to take for you to take this turbine out of here? We literally have to step over it to get to our workstations.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you allow my local electrician to come in, make those changes for you. You stamp that sucker up, and I'm going to ship that out of there for you.
Get out of your hair.
And they said, well, we don't generally allow that. And I said, nope, but I'm not moving anything until you do.
Well, it was those moments that led to the better industry that we have now, I think. Where we do have some standardization, we have some expectations from customers, we have expectations for installers, and
Yes,
that was built out of trial and error. Like the first
absolutely.
solar array I ever put up on a roof, which led me to the education component of where I've been teaching this. The very first time we did it, we went up on the roof with some Unistrut and a couple of lag bolts that the journeyman electrician I was working with at the time probably grabbed at Home Depot that day, and he grabbed like a tube of silicone that you use on your bathroom effectively. We went up on this roof and he slammed these things through the truss with an impact driver, and then he tossed a little bit of silicone on top of the bolt, and we put the modules on the roof, and he was like, "That should be good," and that was it at the day. And I didn't know what to do because it was my first install, first time I'd ever seen this, and
Oh,
I thought to myself, this probably isn't the way that we want to do it.
no.
Fortunately, I had a really good friend who was a very accomplished roofer, and I started asking him questions. And I said, "Well, what happens if I do this? What happens if I do that?" And he said, "Chris, it's going to leak. This is not the way that you should be doing anything. Let me show you how." And this is before we had, racking systems or any of the great stuff that we have today.
I
Uh,
know.
so
Everything's covered, right? It's the
yeah,
easy button for solar now. I
it's pretty awesome.
can't. Yeah,
We were
absolutely.
building curbs for like skylights effectively back in the day because I didn't really know what else to do. So we were wrapping the whole thing and we were tossing Unistrut on top, just like it was a skylight. So we were using like back pans for chimneys and front pans and step flashing down the side and integrating to the shingles and the whole nine yards. It's crazy expensive, but I always say back in the day, you had to be insane and rich to install solar. And
Yes,
then as time went by and technology started advancing, you only had to be crazy. You didn't have to be rich anymore. And
yes,
then after that, it's just now for everyone because of those early adopters. And
absolutely. And you got to love those early adopters, and I'm actually one of them, right? So
exactly.
I was one of those crazy people, and but you know what? When the power goes out around here, I can hear them leaving because I
Yeah.
don't have anything. They can't cook supper. I don't have the Netflix for the kids. You know what? I have everything.
Mhm.
I have literally, it's kind of hilarious. I have this little Christmas tree that has the little, what do you call that? It's one centralized little LED bulb, and it comes through yeah,
Fiber optic.
with colors. You know what I'm talking, the fiber optic. That's it. and I have this little tree, and if that's out, then I know the hydro is out here.
There you go. You have to have something to tell you, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and that's what I have that tells me it's out, and that and the neighbors like starting up their vehicles and leaving.
Yeah. Well, you have an interesting system though, because most people don't have what you have. They're regular customers. I find for the most part, they're interested in a grid interconnected system.
Yep.
A lot of times, they're already unaware that a traditional grid tie doesn't provide you energy when the grid's down. So that's maybe
I
a learning
have two.
curve for them. Yeah.
I have two. So what I have is I have 5 kilowatts that is sitting off grid with 800 amp hour battery bank,
Hmm.
and I have 4 kilowatt magnum. 75% of my house is actually wired to my off grid system. But instead of running a generator, I'll actually have a feed from the main grid to top up the batteries when need be. And I have a program so that it does that smartly. So it's not switching back and forth all the time or anything like that. I'm mostly on our off grid feed for that part,
Hmm.
which of course was tougher during the smoky time there because we were pretty smoky.
Hmm.
But generally speaking, works fantastic. You know, it just tops up when it needs it from the grid and runs on its own the rest of the time. And then we have 5 kilowatts that is actually grid connected. So it's offsetting the other loads that I do have directly connected to the grid. And when the power goes out, that system is out. It's
Hmm.
just our off grid. And you don't have to do it that way. We had two separated systems because we started way back when, because we're one of those crazy early adopter peoples. And it just made more sense to do it that way. We already had it wired separate. So it doesn't make sense for us to put it together anymore because why?
Awesome. My system in my house is a little bit more basic. We just recently moved to Calgary. I was living down south for a number of years. We've recently moved to the city of Calgary, so I've had the opportunity to put modules on my roof as of yet, but I will be getting that done. So for right now, and also because we have a very stable grid in Alberta, like we don't really face power failures. I think the last time I had a power failure was like 7 years ago or so. Other than that, it's intermittent. Actually, this year I shouldn't say that. This year was kind of a challenge. We did have a bunch of brownouts that rolled through the city at different pop points.
Let's
Because
talk about
we
that for a second, though. A
yeah,
battery system will actually ease the brownout situation because those inverters have very tight tolerances and they will not produce to your electrical panel the things operating off of that. It won't produce that browned down. So you're going to be in a tight tolerance and it's going to actually prolong the life of all the equipment attached to it. Sorry, I just wanted to interject that. A lot of people
batteries
don't know.
there's such a great way to drag that because they're responsive to the demand, right? And they're
Hmm.
responsive damn near instantaneously based on the technology that you stored your energy in. So it's perfect. But what I've done in my home for those temporary times now is I got really lazy. I just got myself a very simple iota battery charger under a
Yeah.
15 amp breaker that feeds down to two batteries that I had kicking around. My two batteries feed into my very simple pure sine inverter, which feeds into my sub panel where I've put loads like my TV so that I can continue to watch Netflix if the power goes out. Some lights in my fridge, and that way, if the power goes out, I never even notice. It just immediately feeds in from the batteries. Cost me less than $1,000 to put that together, and I've got backup power, for a few
Yeah.
months anyway.
Yeah, and that's just it. So it depends what's important to you. Like sometimes we have everybody go, "Oh, we want everything in that essential load panel." No, you don't actually need everything.
Yeah, yeah,
You can do this really economically if it's just, certain things like the sump pump. I mean, your
yeah,
basement's going to flood if the sump pump doesn't get covered.
right.
The lights in your general space,
Yeah.
the communication, like the internet and the LED TV in the living room. If this means something to you, cheap to do. Absolutely. We can
It's
go on the
getting
cheap and get this covered.
totally, and it's getting more and more economical because the products we have are more and more economical. And
Yeah.
by economical, I mean less load than ever before. Like
Yes.
LEDs have come in to really change the world.
Yeah.
And now the TVs are lower consumption than ever before, like you're saying. So it's very reasonable to power a bunch of these things for a few hours.
Oh, absolutely. But we do have customers with other greater concerns. I mean, they have things like CPAP machines and oxygen machines coming to us too. And we can do these medical devices pretty reasonably too, if this is an essential thing for you. So really, it's about building that personal, have that conversation with your customer so as you understand what their true need is.
Totally. Well, when it comes down to it, the understanding your customer is so important. And when we deliver AETI training curriculum, we always speak from the perspective of our people taking the curriculum becoming energy consultants. I'm not training solar guys. We're going to talk about energy management. And the reason is by listening to customers, we end up understanding more about what they are. If you're just a solar company, you can't fix all their problems. But the thing that I always say is ask your customer why they've called you. That's the most important thing you can do. And so when they start saying things like, I'm calling you because I'm tired of the crazy bills that I'm experiencing, I know that they're trying to reduce their economic impact, right? They want to get rid of this bill. So as an energy consultant, the best thing that you can do is first off, toss in some LED light bulbs. So we speak about that through all of our training curriculum. First, lower the consumption by making good decisions and then produce energy. And the old adage of you respect something more when you make it yourself is really true with solar. Once people start generating energy, they start understanding more about what they do. But Canada and North America, possibly as a whole, has a challenge when it comes to actually understanding energy consumption. Like we don't really know what energy consumption is here because we don't speak about kilowatt hours and we don't speak about this type of stuff through our traditional education.
Hey, you. Okay. So actually, they sent me a link I need to download. So I'm just letting you know.
No problem.
And as soon as I touched it, it took me to a different screen. So I had to find my way back to you because I'd already taken myself out of feed.
Well, we're back now. It's all good.
Oh yeah, it's totally fine. So anyways, uh what I have to say first is I've had some of my staff train under you. You're amazing. They love they love how you make it all very fun to learn, so therefore they absorb more of what you're doing. And it's not just you. I know you have other instructors and you have your online courses as well. But when it's not dry and it's presented in such a fun way, it's so much easier to learn, and it's coming from the heart because I know you develop all of your stuff not just to be technically best practices and what we do, but it's also um, from the perspective of the client and from the perspective of a beginner to understand, from a seasoned professional, how something should be happening. So it's amazing what you're doing there.
Yeah, I think they've taken a different approach than, and there's a lot of great places where you can learn about renewable energy. The way that I wanted to really teach this the entire time I've been doing it with any different division is teach it from the perspective of the large industry that can be. I don't believe that solar is just four-man operation kind of thing, like mom and pop electrical company doing solar. I see big companies with lots of moving parts. And so our curriculum and training is geared towards everyone. And I tell people that this is where I want you to start your education or possibly help you further, but we will not end your education with our curriculum. We just get you enough to know what to look out for and how to extend and educate yourself afterwards with what works for you. But so we teach from the idea that this is solar and everyone is welcome. And I know that that is not popular when I say that in parts of the world, that everyone has a space in renewable, but it's really true.
It's really true, and in all parts of the environmental sector. Because I've seen people start in one place and then they end up kind of really somewhere else.
Totally.
I don't consider everybody competition. I install solar for a living, and there's a reason for that. I believe in partners. I believe in those types of synergies that can happen.
For sure. Well, when we look at it too, it's not just electricians that are in the renewable energy area. We've got energy consultants that possibly are engineers or salespeople or, customer support or service, or even the person answering the phone at your company. If they know a little bit about renewable energy, they're better poised to answer those questions effectively. So that's
Absolutely.
why our training is for everyone, whether you're an electrician or whether you're not. We're always very clear with what you have to be an electrician to do and what you don't need to be an electrician to do. But the line is actually pretty clear. So it makes that education very simple.
Absolutely.
When you
And
touch a wire,
whether you
yeah,
have the yeah, but whether you are an electrician or not, you should still know the process and how it happens, because
of course,
you could be the one answering the phone and doing the conducting the sales or the even the technical support. If you don't understand this process,
right.
you know,
It's
how are
true.
you supposed to help that customer when they're in a pickle and they're trying to figure out how to, get through some issue?
Exactly.
You know,
So we've always trained everyone. The two largest groups, obviously, are roofers that we train and electricians. But outside of that is like all the other groups too. So our courses will usually see, we've got the largest concentration is electricians. Second to that is roofers or other support industries like framers, that type of stuff. And then we start moving into just those that want to be part of the industry. So maybe they're financiers or engineers or different support structures that will be part of that process, and they love to learn that stuff as well. So that's
wonderful.
what we've always been focused on is making sure everyone understands it.
Yeah, well, and that's what I've always enjoyed about your courses, that I think you present things in a nice general language
Yeah,
that not, so you don't have to be fearful if you're not an electrician. It's
no,
not gonna, you're not gonna get whatever that is.
yeah,
So it's pretty important for people to understand what they're looking at when they come into your course. And I think you do a really great job of that. I have to break for commercial, but after that, I want to talk about the thing behind you.
yeah, yeah. Let's do it.
Let's do that. So I'm gonna pull you out of feed, and we're gonna go to commercial. All right then. See you in 30 seconds.
Why go solar? Solar is better than ever. Our revolutionary design and inverter equipment with the latest in solar panel technology for the ultimate in-home and business security. That's right, I said security. Grid security and security of your home are linked. Fortify your future today with a battery backup system. No maintenance, quiet running. Did you know in Manitoba, grid-connected, off-grid, and battery backup systems are 100% right off in the year you purchase for any company or farm? Do you want to back up your internet, keep your tills running, and the lights on? We can install a system that is right for you with battery backup fully capable of taking on all those essential loads and keeping you running. When you call our experts at Evolve Green, ask about getting your free energy audit today. Call or email today to find out what system works best for you. 1-866-5EVOLVE or support.
Hey, and we're back, evolutionaries. That commercial is running just a little bit long, so we're talking to Chris Williamson today of AETI, and what they want to do is they want to train you in the renewable energy sector. And when we are talking about AETI, they also do this stuff. So, Chris, welcome back.
Thank you.
They also do this stuff in the industry, and now he's got something very exciting to share with us about a battery system that's just behind his shoulder there.
It's true. This Voltox unit here, we're pretty proud of. It's something we've been working on for quite some time. We've got some patent pending technology inside of this. And it's really an intelligent mechanism to accompany a genset anywhere out there in the industry. And we drastically managed to reduce emissions by having intelligent controls over the energy functionality. Like I stated, we're not really solar guys here. We're energy management people. We love energy from all forms. But because we're pretty good at making it, we also respect it. And so this Voltox product is part of that. What it's designed to do is be an accompaniment. And today we're working heavily with the genset light towers is the main focus for this unit.
Oh,
So anything that you might see on the road crews out in the area or on a pipeline, or I mean, even at a concert, really, they're used heavily all over the place. What often happens with this is you can see generators that are somewhere between 8 to 20 kilowatts, powering a 4 lamp light tower. Traditionally, about 1,000 watts per lamp for your consumption there. Now, there's a lot of distance between the load and the generation potential. So what we like to do is manage that energy effectively. So we take the energy from the generator, we send it through the Voltox emission reduction control unit, and then that powers the load afterwards. So we used to have a situation where we had a 1 hour runtime for 1 hour of lighting. We've now dropped that drastically, and effectively with the Voltox unit, what we see is emission reductions of 97% in a lot of cases, plus even. And we do that by running the generator for about 15 minutes for 12 hours of light. And so that's become a really popular solution out there. We've got everything geared up for this product. It was very recently in a soon position, and now it's here. It's physically behind me, and we've got some great manufacturing partners coming online to really help support the interest that we've seen on this product. I don't think we really understood what we had, and so I've got a little shop in the back where I can kick out 20 to 40 of these bad boys a month, and everyone's going to be happy. But that doesn't meet the expectations of the industry that we've seen currently, so we've had to source other areas to manufacture. It's been fun. It's been a wild ride, actually.
oh, that's excellent.
Yeah, and getting a patent pending, process. So I think we're going to be successful with that because we do have some very intuitive controls that sit here. And so effectively, the Voltox, the way that we interconnect it is just 2 wires into the back of the generator. It takes about 1 hour for one electrician to modify the genset unit to accept the Voltox emission reduction control unit into there. And then after that, it's good to go. We just dump this down beside it, plug it in, and it takes over. So the genset can run with or without it, but
Wow.
after it's installed, you'll just never run it afterwards. 97.7% emission reduction. I was half joking, and it's only half joking, but the first one that rolled out in the field probably did more for the environment than every solar panel I've grid connected in Canada in my life. And the truth
Wow.
is because we never changed the actual burn of the fossil fuel generators that are powering our electrical grid. Every time I put a solar panel up, it continued to churn the same way it did. This thing actually shuts the generator off. So it's not like we've dropped it by a rate. It just doesn't run anymore. The generator turns on for 15 minutes. It charges up the Voltox unit. It then shuts off for 12 hours.
15 minutes?
15 minutes for 12 hours of light is our current ratio. Now, obviously, if you start using the power plugs on the back of it, then that changes the generator runtime, but they're totally functional. It's just that I can't predict what type of load you would like to have there,
Yes.
but I can tell you exactly what the load for the lights are when you run it. So we roll it with a 12-hour on concept. So that's why everyone's been so excited about it. If we look at all these little units that are running around there, it's a very impactful position for emission reduction with this unit. There's a lot of people that can take advantage of it. It's a fairly low-cost rollout. It's proven technology, so there's nothing new here other than our algorithms on how we do it. So we think it's a winner, and it seems like the industry's come along to support that as well. So we're very excited about this.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, it's always good to hear about new technology, especially in the battery industry, because, it always seems like people do these standard things and they don't really understand the technology that's out there that could support their product for years to come. Especially the cycle time and all of these different components, and people need to start looking at that, because sometimes you spend a little bit more money now, but you get a lot more for your money.
Well,
and
that's what it's into is that management has a lot of value in it when we do it right. I mean, we're not only dropping emissions with this unit, we're extending the life expectancy of the generator quite heavily. It's expected that about 30,000 hours is what people tell me is roughly the expectancy that they hope to have out of a generator. Well, with the unit, when we now run it for 15 minutes a day instead of 12 hours, it takes about 178 years for the generator to get to 30,000 hours.
Yeah.
So not only are we reducing emissions, but we're reducing waste by not having to replace these generators in 5 years.
And actually, that's what I like to do, like with our off-grid families. And sometimes they ask us for wind turbines, and we interconnect these into the solar system. So they see the voltage of the battery system. So they literally turn off while the solar is on.
Mm-hmm.
And we want them to do that. They always want to try and, because they've spent money on it, they want it to work at its maximum capacity. But what you don't understand is if you don't overwork a product, it's going to last you double the lifespan.
Exactly.
So we have turbines out there that are 10 years old that still haven't died. Why? Because they're only working 50% of the time. And doing exactly what they need to do. They're trickle charging overnight when the solar isn't happening. And I think the more consistent your charge and decharge is, the more consistent the level you can keep that, the better and the longer your system is going to last, and the happier you're going to be with that system as well.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And getting an understanding of batteries is what I would encourage anyone that's currently in the industry of renewables to start looking towards, because batteries are the obvious direction as to where we're going. If we look at what's taking place, I spend a lot of my time trying to effectively see the future, because we need to stay on top of what trends are coming to be so that we can educate and build products that match the needs. And everywhere where we look, we see that the integration of renewables into the grid is posing challenges that are solvable with localized storage.
Absolutely. And really, renewables about working together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like the synergy of how the earth and the planet interact with the plants and the animals and all of these things, and everything is connected. Renewable is exactly the same way. We never say all or nothing in anything.
No, that's a crazy
We
thing.
want you to have LED lighting. We want you to do extra installation. We want you to do triple pane we want you to do all these other things too. Have a reasonable heat source, have a backup heat source, you know what I mean? And then we're going to go in and we're going to use something to create energy and store energy and back up your energy. Chris, I have a wonderful video that you guys supplied us about that Voltox, and I'd like to play that right now for you.
I'd love you to.
Excellent. Wow. I love that.
I like it too. I've got such a creative team here, like such a fantastic team works with me. I can't even say enough about these guys.
Well, we haven't had very much rain this season. How did you get all those lightning strikes in there?
I don't even know how they do it. They're amazing. The idea starts, I am so lucky to work with the people that I do, because I get to say crazy things all the time. Like, I want the video to look like Jurassic Park. And then they're like, okay, how's that? Like, that's cool. And then I get to be the dude who sits in front of the camera and reaps all the benefit associated with their hard work. But I can't say enough about my team. I am nothing without these people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I have a great group of individuals working with me too. And it's always wonderful to see what they come up with. I know right now they're trying to get me to change my logo.
Huh?
Hilarious. Yeah. Well, I've had it. The original logo was actually a picture up the tube looking at the sky and the bottom of a wind turbine. But everybody thinks it was the planet, and now it has mutated into the planet, and then we sort of mutated it into North America because what we're trying to indicate is we went from worldwide and we're coming in closer with our markets because of the growth of our industry. We now have all the work we need here at home, so we've really gone from world to so now they're gonna
so hard though. Like,
they are
one of the hardest things to do. Like, I actually found it easier to name my children than come up with names for products or logos, and I think I'm done making logos. I'm done doing all that stuff. I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of groups before in my career. And unfortunately for me, maybe none of those were really mine. So when I'm with AETI, this is a spot where now I am the founder, I'm the president, and I am a partner in this. So it's the first time that I get to be that, which means that it's possibly the last time I need to worry about logos. So I won't need to
Nice.
start another division. I don't need any other organizations. This is where it's at for me. And I'm really excited to really be making decisions for an organization that I get to stand behind.
Well,
Okay.
absolutely. And AETI is amazing. The programs you're offering, I think I'm 100% behind a Canadian option.
Yeah,
You
and
know, I
that's
mean,
cool.
before AETI, there was SICK and a couple other organizations, but mostly it was coming out of the US, the NABSET stuff.
Yeah,
And I took NABSET. I brought them here
yeah,
because nothing else was available.
right.
And they, you know, it was about best practices and safety. I'm like, why can't we do this?
Yeah,
So
no,
then Chris
totally.
comes along and does this. I
Yeah.
love it.
Well, we wanted to teach not just like I mean, and we started this before the Canadian Electrical Code had really gotten on board to some degree.
Yeah.
So and now we see that's coming to be good support. We're also seeing provinces that are making moves to self-regulate as well, and so they're
Yep.
increasing minimum install practices. A lot of people don't realize this, but the truth is that the Canadian Electrical Code is actually the bare minimum bottom end that you have to achieve. It's not industry best install practices. And so
True.
we
And
keep
actually, in some cases, there's a couple of things on there that you have to school the inspector on because they're not quite right in the electrical code. Let's put it that way.
there's some parts
Can
where I
lead to
would explain
problems.
that technology creates challenges.
Yeah.
One of the prime examples too is the new hybrids that are coming on board. I've had the opportunity to speak with a few inspectors that had overseen the installation of some of these units. I wanted to
Yes.
understand, for example, rapid shutdown on a wallway. Because it's a hybrid unit, the rapid shutdown should be on the DC, not on the AC. If we kill
Yeah.
AC, the DC circuit is still very live for hybrid purposes.
Well, and it
So
has the ability on Wallway, for instance, it has the optimizer, so it's
yeah,
very easy to do a rapid module level shutdown.
yeah,
And here's the other thing, like, you know, people talk like there's one solution out there. Like, holy smokes. When I say I consult, it's because I'm trying to figure out who you are, what you want, what's your goal today, what's your goal 5 years from now, because I have such a selection and ways to do stuff
well,
that,
you're totally right. And I think
yep,
that one of the things that I find the most interesting about the selection of installation networks that we see now is we see these two breaks. And so we now see organizations that do this one thing very effectively, low cost, ease of install, and they're very good at it. So if you want a 7.6 kilowatt system, they will do that. They will utilize this particular, like an AP system and a Longi solar panel, and that's what you get. And they're very rigid on that component. There's nothing wrong with that because they cater to this sort of box kit sort of install.
yeah,
And then there's
yeah,
people such as yourself that are like, well, let me hear your story. Let me customize it for you.
yeah.
And that's really cool. It's almost like a bespoke solar install.
Yes,
Well,
yes, we're
So,
the cliche.
yeah.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's the niche market is us, yeah. But I mean, we're trying to do that modular as well, but it's hard for me because in my soul, I know that everybody has a story.
It's true.
Um, you know, I mean, I just I'm actually in the midst of designing a whole new healing center for a First People's healing center, and it's amazing, like all the things that this project will need to come to bear, and not just what we do, but a whole bunch of other things that they're going to need for this project. And the whole thing is pretty neat and unique.
Hmm.
And you know, I wouldn't have known any of that if I hadn't have gone there and actually listened to their story and understood kind of why they're doing what they're doing and where they want to go with this. You know what I mean?
I do. Sometimes when I'm doing these consultations, because I don't actually do installs anymore. I haven't done installs for quite some time. But when I get the opportunity to consult with someone, I love hearing what's going on. And I can't even tell anymore who's learning more because I'm telling them all about renewable, but they're all telling me about what they're doing. And so I'm
Yeah,
getting this whole new perspective on a situation that I was never privy to before. And the
exactly.
world of solar is, yeah, I mean, the world's big, but maybe it's small too. When you get to be a Canadian renewable energy practitioner effectively, that gives us the power to work on a global scale. And then we start seeing some really cool stuff. And, I got used to the Canadian world, and then we had the opportunity to really start taking on some international projects. And today, I
You
mean, maybe it's sad or maybe it's not, but I
you
consult
didn't get that
400
quite
different.
right. That is let me see. You said renewable. So Canadian renewable practitioner. No, it is it took me a while to figure this one out. It's Canadian sustainable energy professional.
Sure.
I
That's
know,
so good,
right?
yeah. But when you're
I have the designation, by the way. I
there you
just
go.
I had to figure out what the heck it meant. So I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, but being Canadian means that we have such high standards for our installs that really the world welcomes us to play in their area too. If we
But
can
it
do great
has
things
to.
for Canada, then they're like, yeah, absolutely, come do this.
We
And
are
do
such
that.
an extreme environment,
Yeah,
though, Chris. We can't do it wrong, or you'll know.
that's true. And the
Absolutely.
extreme environment actually creates a lot of skepticism locally about the benefit and the potential for solar. But it really comes from a lack of understanding of technology, which is not someone's fault. I mean, it's my job to know about it, and your job, and a lot of other people's, but it's not the customer's job to necessarily know that. But it creates myths. One, that solar can't work in Canada because we get snow and stuff, right?
Yeah, of course.
That was always my favorite when you try to explain to someone that a module actually performs better cold than it does hot. And then they have that aha moment, you know, where you could say we have similar, potential for light hours to Florida, but we are cold and they're hot.
Right.
Aha, you're right. Yeah.
I get that all the time. It can't possibly work here the same as Arizona. I'm like, well, Arizona's hot, and when
Yeah.
solar gets hot, it doesn't produce as well. I'm just saying. Our
Right.
shoulder seasons do amazing. I find I get just as much or more in April than I do in June.
Mhm.
And a lot of people don't realize it's because we can have lots of sunshine in April, and but it's still cold, so it's producing really, really well.
Yeah.
I track this stuff, and I can tell you, and different technologies handle it differently too. Did you notice that?
Yes.
String versus micros versus, what type of stringing you have
Yeah.
will also impact.
I agree completely with you. Even down to optimized and non-optimized, and how this
Yes.
works too, right? So there's big differences that exist for those that, really want to craft a system for a specific customer. It takes more
Right.
time to do that. The customer should expect to pay more for the time because there's a lot of design that goes into this. It's not just a quick throw me up there when we're really considering everything for the customer. But technology is amazing. Like as I said, my first module was a 165 watt. I remember just a couple of years ago speaking with one of my partners and saying, like I couldn't even imagine a 350-watt solar panel. That's crazy. Why would anyone need that? And I mean, today that's not even a thing. We don't talk about that.
445, 450,
I know, crazy.
465, and there's 72 cell, not 96.
I know, and we're starting to
It's
have
like,
bifacials now that are incredible, and
I know.
the
Yeah.
cost has plummeted to such a degree now. And with the change in technology, it's so quick that even through our AETI training courses, two courses are seldom the same because a new piece of technology has popped up in between. And a manufacturer has sent me spec sheets, and because we deal very closely with manufacturers for our training curriculum, that's how we make sure that we're up to date on the most relevant equipment available in the field, and we teach and speak to design mechanisms with that. And so we see new technology, and it's like, oh my god, that just changed everything. How do we incorporate that? Like the bifacials is a prime example. To now start considering angle and height of a module again was pretty crazy. But we have this weird, like everything that was old is new again
Yes.
right? Because
Yeah.
and that just amazes me too. I remember the days of trackers being all that mattered, and then trackers being obsolete, and then trackers coming back again, and then trackers going away again.
You know what? I don't want to see a tracker, honestly. I don't mind seasonal tilts, and actually, I don't know if you've seen the P90 seasonal. You
It's
can
beautiful.
basically drive up. I mean, this thing is so robust. I don't care. I don't think a tornado could take that out, to be fair. Honestly, it's an amazing. I don't. If you haven't seen it, P90 Energy, they are amazing. So you can drive up with an ATV connected to the battery, and it can tilt.
That's crazy.
And that's what we want to see. Nice, stable stuff, like where we're just seasonally just going to tilt it a little bit, and then we're going to go away and leave it alone. We don't want to see all this stuff because, all those worm gears, they just fail. They absolutely fail. And then they turtle over and they can't even produce, like, what is that? Oh my gosh. I mean, I know, and I understand. I understand because what they were up against was 10 kilowatt maximum on the AC side in Ontario.
Mhm.
And we know that. So they were trying to get as much as they absolutely could out of that 10 kilowatt. So that's what they were up against. And that's why they invested in things like Dagger and all of those kind of trackers. But I mean, they have 5-year warranties on those trackers, and you're spending $20,000 on them. And
Mhm.
the math wasn't there for me.
No.
It really depends on the funding and the program and how it sells, or whether or not you retain your energy and use it a different way. So it really is a personalized product.
Mhm.
And if you have the right solution for your home, your farm, your business, you're going to be extremely happy.
Well, trackers are really a financial thing, aren't they? Like they're
Yes.
there financially to benefit because, and that's why they're in and out of favor. They have the ability to produce quite a bit more energy. The problem is that it's cheaper to just buy another solar panel that's rigid mounted today than put one on a tracker and produce your.
And I agree with you. Why would you bother to have something that is unstable and that over the course, like at the end of the 5 years, it's going to turtle over on you, and you're going to have to do some cash infusion to get that thing running.
Totally.
I don't believe in that. That's kind of like why I'm not there with the turbines, for the cost versus, cost per kilowatt of installed plant versus the solar, because the solar, I can get double the amount of energy now for the cost of a 10 kilowatt turbine
Solar
installed.
is the cheapest production on the planet, bar none.
Yeah, fully installed with all the bells and whistles here in Manitoba for a ground mount, it's 7 cents a kilowatt. Manitoba Hydro is almost 10.
Yeah.
To buy it.
It's amazing where we've gotten to. Like, I mean, I started into this industry even before the concept of return on investment. Like now, because people were just doing it. The first time I did an ROI calculation, it was over 300 years because it just economically didn't make sense. The customer wanted it because it was super cool. And they were those early adopters. But now to be able to give people ROIs that are less than the lending parameters of a financial institution really creates a world that is so different. And I think one of the things too that's interesting is that the industry changes so quickly. That means it's inviting all the time to people, because if I stop studying or reading or looking into new technology, it's going to take about 3 months before I'm antiquated. So I always have to be on the top of my game, looking out on my peripherals for what's coming on, how are we going to design with that, how do I stay relevant? So that means that anyone that wants to get into the industry can do it anytime. The truth is all my knowledge from 10 plus years ago makes me a curator at a museum. It doesn't make me today's professional. All of my current relevant information, because of my excitement for the industry, allows me to be that. So the dude hops into the industry today, they study really hard, they'll be speaking relevantly to anyone who's an old dog in the industry in about 3 months with relevant technology. But if they stop, they're out of the industry too. So you've got to love it to stay relevant. And the technology is going to continue to advance. It's going to change the world. And when we see people on, maybe social media that are denouncing renewable tech, they're coming at it from a perspective that isn't current. They're using a quote from 25 years ago and tossing it in today.
And so took it out because it didn't work. Oh, have you heard this one? Oh, come on. You know what? It didn't work because it was DIY. He put the wrong amount of something and he didn't even do it properly. If it was installed by somebody who was certified, it could have been that he didn't even understand what he was seeing. It could have been a pivotal thing, like a breaker wasn't actually turned on. I've actually gone to, when I talk about these things, I'm not throwing it out there. I actually am on the ground and go and troubleshoot and service. Right? So
no, it's totally true. And there's a lot of weird things that can happen. Even just there's so many times that I've seen in RV installs, for example, where an individual will have 2 modules. They place them in series down to a PWM charge controller, charging a 12-volt battery bank instead of in parallel. And just a little mistake like that changes everything that's taking place. So there's stuff that you can read online, and there's people that are pretty good and know how to do a thing or two. and sometimes they play in this industry, but they don't understand that little piece of it, and that changes it.
Yep.
And we also have a lot of people currently, like, I think that education needs to become a little bit more standardized. Honestly, the people at AETI probably don't want to hear me say this, but it would be great if private industry was no longer handling this training and this was part of other components. Like, why are we teaching this type of stuff through high schools as options through the public sector? So that training divisions like
I wrote series in parallel for grade 9 to 12 students.
Yeah, exactly.
And so at the end, they understand series in parallel on batteries and solar panels and why they're different and why they're the same.
Totally.
And that's a 11 lesson plan that, so I agree. And I wrote that for a school.
Yeah.
And
I mean, even electricians, they oftentimes do not understand this because an electrician, through their training, they're working from a way where the energy in theory is endless, right? So they don't have a limited component. They don't have to worry about production. They're delivering it. And I take nothing away from that process, but it doesn't include the generation, understanding, or design attributes that an electrician will be charged with when they start their own renewable energy company. It's outside of their traditional realm, right? It's not just like, where do I put some plugs in the basement? And I mean, no disrespect to the electrical trade whatsoever. In fact, I take a part in it. I'm an electrician. But there's nothing usually in their history to teach them how to design a PV array for a customer on a roof. Until you know how to derate a module based off of its angle of approach to the south. I mean, and I don't know which year you learn that in traditional electrical school, but it's not there.
No.
Yeah. So
and it's still not there in most cases.
And then we have more of a standard of understanding for installing design that can be handled by the electricians. But there needs to be some changes to it, and I think that it should just become more integrated to the trade sector to teach more information about renewable energy as opposed to a standalone component.
Excellent. And I completely agree. And also, I think there should be a secondary piece too. It doesn't have to necessarily be an electrician for doing the solar panels, but there could be a secondary training course that you'd offer for like an M or an S, let's say for solar panels, an S course, and then they can be certified to do that. Do you know what I mean? So you cover micros, you cover this, and you cover that. And then if they get their certification in the battery side, then they can do that. Because they all have their own safety concerns. They all have their own do's and don'ts and best practices. And I think it would be value added if Canada came up with like a certification level for each one of those things. Like, because it should be separate. It should be. And nobody wants to hear me say that, but I have seen the best of them get their worth shocked out of them because they cross-polled and didn't realize they were doing it.
There's very little in the traditional electrical world that involves DC understanding.
Yes.
You've got like some motor controls for some little stuff. You've got, fire alarm systems. But outside of that, there's not too much that's DC. It's alternating current. It's endless.
But that's not going to kill you.
Well, I mean, anything in the right spot, right? But I would say this is that I get asked all the time by provinces. I do consult with a lot of different provinces on their training curriculum requirements, also feed-in tariff-esque programs on how they're going to manage this energy. And one of the questions that I get asked all the time is, do we let a homeowner do this under a homeowner permit? And that's kind of where my answer is always specifically this. For microinverters, if you're going to allow a homeowner to wire their basement under a homeowner's permit, then you should probably allow them to install microinverters on their roof. I mean, it's similar in connection.
It's in AC, and actually that's one of the safest systems there is. And I actually agree with that one. I think homeowners should be able to do the microinverters, and nobody wants to hear me say that, but it is absolutely the truth. If it is a microinverter that is module level, because we need to state this, right? Because there could be a microinverter that is not module level, okay?
There is, yeah.
And I believe there is, the Outback.
There is, yeah.
You got it.
No, you're
string
right.
level.
When we start moving to string level, we're rocking 600 VDC on these circuits. If you're not afraid of 600 VDC, you should not touch it.
No,
like
if you're telling, exactly. It's kind of like the electricians that, they're endeavoring on a big battery bank for the first time. And I look at their tools and they're not wrapped.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are, you'll slip. And when you do, like tightening connections all the way through, when you do, it's going to be bad. It's really going to be bad. And I've had electricians laugh at me. Laugh. And yet I've seen electricians touch things in big rectifiers and fly across the room. It happens. It does happen. So safety is key, and learning and going through a course, at least you're gonna see and gotta talk about, the safety and also how to do something, the best way to do something, and how to protect yourself and keep you safe.
Yeah.
Because everybody should go home.
I was saying the Canadian Electric Code is effectively the thing that governs us when we do these installs.
Yep.
That to me is industry minimum install requirements. We then have provincial bodies that have sometimes increased the minimum standard, but then beyond that is industry best install practices. And so when we are teaching, we are talking about safety. We're clear on who can do what and who can't do the other things based on jurisdictional requirements. And then we talk about what is the industry best install practice and why do we say that?
Yes.
And that's just the way that our courses have always been taught. For example, critter guard would be one of the prime examples. I say, look, when you're using a microinverter, if this is the scenario, according to the Canadian Electrical Code, this is what you require. However, here's industry best install practices. And in my experience, I've seen a lot of birds that live below modules when you do not put critter guard on. And when birds live below modules or squirrels, they tend to poop on top of modules, and that lowers production. So industry best install practice is wrap it with a critter guard. It might not be a code requirement, but here's the reason and rationale for this concept. And if we always hold our installs to a higher standard, then we can hope to protect.
Well, especially on those string inverters, because if something happens, like with the micros, I'm not sure that we really truly need it because we're already in 240, but with the string inverters, definitely, if you're not using people guard or critter guard on that, you're going to run into some real issues if something were to go.
But the critter guard to me is outside of the electrical component. It's totally safe for things to live below there, but it's really bad for your system to have it happen. The electrical isn't the only thing we worry about.
I went to service. It wasn't one of my installs, but the company is gone that did this one. Anyways, so I went there and he had a problem with his inverter, and that was fine. But I always check over the whole system when I go. I went in the roof, and the people guard for this string inverter system, which is required in our province, was have you ever seen like plastic mesh?
Yeah.
Like flimsy, like this?
Not for that install, but
no, of course not. Of course not. Somebody used that.
No.
I'd never seen that before in my life. I mean, on that kind of a thing. I think they might use it for like maybe snow fencing or something.
Okay, fair. Yeah.
I was like blown away, but it was black.
Yeah.
And
sometimes.
yeah, I was pretty floored. I mean, that wasn't their issue. There was a loose cable in their inverter, so I got them going. They were super happy. But yeah, I mean, like what I identified to the customer that that's not allowed in Manitoba. So you may wanna do something about that, right? Yeah. But also for safety, because I had squirrels. I could see the squirrels running around.
Yeah. That's why I say we have to consider more than just the electrical. I get, I try to stay off social media. I'm really bad at it because I wear my heart on my sleeve. And a lot of people know this about me. It's pretty easy to get Chris fired up. And so now I just have a rule. I'm like, I'm going to run away from this and not say anything. But I do see it a lot where we talk about these things. We say, oh, that's not required. And it's like, yeah, just because the CEC doesn't say it doesn't mean that the customer doesn't deserve it. They're ultimately what we are doing. And that is the fallacy in a lot of the installs that I see today. Do the best for the customer. You know better. If you are going to win or lose a job based off of the small amount of money associated with the enclosure around a rooftop array, maybe you're not in this for the right reasons. Toss it in there. Explain to the customer why it is that you're doing it and allow them to make that decision. When I was doing it, I used to have such an extensive quoting process, and I would explain to a customer everything I was doing all the time. And I always put critter guard in there. And I would tell them through this quotation process when I'm sitting down, I'd say, Lorena, I'm going to put this critter guard on your roof. I don't have to. The code doesn't state that I need to. But I've done this a lot. I'm an industry professional. I believe this is the best I can do for you. If I don't put critter guard there, you're going to have birds living below it. They're going to poop on top of it, or squirrels moving in. You don't want that. Even if it's not a problem for the electrical, it's a problem for your home, and I care about that. And that's why I've got this fee associated there. Now, when you go to a quote with another person, you're going to ask them about critter guard, and they're going to say, don't need to do it.
Well, and that's true. By electrical code, you don't, right? And I know, like, so it's about best practices. But if you explain why it's there, then the customer has a more informed decision to make. Well, I had an excellent conversation. I'm sorry. Yeah. You know what? We've actually gone about 10 minutes over. I know we could talk for days. I really could talk for days with you. And we will have you on again in the future. I want to talk a little bit more about that volt aux going forward. Yeah. And I'm going to actually show that video again as we close out. Thank you so much, Chris, for coming on the show today for AETI. And, I know it's going to be a success. It is a success. And I wish you all the success with Volt aux. And hopefully we're going to see more information, maybe a video on the install and stuff. That would be very cool.
We'll have a lot more coming online. And
I want to see Rev 2. Yeah. Rev 2, with the cappuccino machine.
That would be great. I'll get you the first one.
I want the first one. Dibs. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much. And that's all for today's show, Evolutionaries. This was absolutely amazing chat with Chris Williamson from AETI. I'm going to show that video again because I just love it.